Should the Saints start using Kendre Miller in a bigger role for this offense? We'll talk about that right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome inside another edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I'm your host, Chris Vogel, and as always, the Straight Up Saints podcast is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore, Scott Vicknair handles it all. You give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. The Saints fell to 0-4 on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, and although it is tough to get really excited about this team right now with the lack of success in terms of the win-loss column, I genuinely think there are certain aspects of Sunday's game against the Bills that should excite you. I talked about it on the post-game live stream. I thought Jonas Sanker's breakout game should everyone excited. He is a really, really talented rookie safety, and I think that's the type of game where, all right, you're not going to expect a couple of pass breakups and an interception on a weekly basis, but his ability to really just kind of flip the game in a positive direction for this defense is absolutely possible. I think he can be a game changer for this team. And elsewhere, I thought Brian Brzee played well. And, offensively, I thought Kendre Miller was the standout. And when it comes to Kendre Miller, it's such a fascinating situation because there's never been a doubt for us Saints fans of whether or not he is a talented player. From the moment the Saints drafted him out of TCU, when he would step on the field, there would be flashes of just a really explosive runner. You could make that one cut, maybe two, and hit that second level with a ton of burst. He just wasn't healthy. And this is the first time in pretty much his entire career, especially when it comes to the NFL, that he hasn't, thankfully, and knock on wood, it stays that way, hasn't really had those hurdles from a health perspective. He's been feeling like he's at full strength. And the Saints haven't really used him in a featured role yet this season, but Buffalo, a really, really poor run defensive team, they have that flaw, and the Saints decided to exploit it with both their running backs. Alvin had 15 carries for 70 yards, and Kendre had 11 carries for 65 yards and a touchdown. Now, that one performance doesn't mean that Kendre Miller is about to enter a breakout season or is going to take over as the number one running back. What I am saying, though, after watching that game and seeing the burst that he brings and his ability to take some of the pressure off Alvin Kamara, I think it's time for the Saints to really lean heavily into those two running backs and maybe see if they might have a duo here instead of Alvin being the featured back and then Kendre getting 5 to 6 carries a game, which is what he was getting before this. He had 5 carries in week 1, 5 carries in week 2, and 7 carries in week 3. 11 carries to me is more like it. I would say maybe even up that usage if you can, especially if you're in a game that you're either close or perhaps winning in. Obviously, when you're trailing against the Bills, you got to throw a little bit more than you'd like to. But I think it's time to really open it up for Kendre Miller. I think his talent is there. I think when you look at the splits between him and AK, right now, AK is averaging 3.9 yards per carry. Kendre Miller's averaging 4.4. So it's not the biggest of difference, but man, I think he has justified getting a bigger workload as you go into this next kind of slate of 3 games where they have the Giants, the Patriots, and the Bears. And this season is all about figuring out who can and who can't be part of the future for this Saints team, especially with Kellen Moore, obviously going to be the coach for, imagine at least the next couple of seasons. I think Kendre Miller has warranted that with his play. He's a physical runner. His contact balance has been really impressive so far this season. And I really do hope that the Saints can find a way to continue to obviously use Alvin Kamara because he is their starting running back. I don't think there's any denying that. But understanding that the Saints have always been at their best when they have that kind of running back tandem. I think about Alvin and Mark, which was obviously the gold standard for this team. But I also think about, Deuce McAllister and Reggie Bush. I think about seeing out there maybe even kind of 3 running backs at a time with Pierre Thomas and Darren Sproles and even a young Mark Ingram or even Chris Ivory kind of being in the rotation. The Saints have seen and shown that they could use that committee approach. And that isn't, I know it's usually considered a negative word in the NFL, but I look at this team, they don't have a ton of offensive talent. Why not lean on your 2 running backs? And why not give one of the few guys that it seems like is taking strides step by step, week by week, giving him that bigger workload, kind of rewarding that player and seeing what they can do with more carries. So Saints play the Giants in week 5. Man, I'd love to see Kendre Miller get another 11, 12 carries, maybe even a little bit more against that Giants defense, which, by the way, struggled against Amari and Hampton of the Chargers. And I know the Giants were able to pull out the win, and obviously that bodes well for the future of them and how they're feeling going into week 5. But this is a Giants run defense that had trouble with that rookie running back from UNC, giving up over 120 yards. So I'd like to see Kendre used a little bit more and see how he kind of handles it. If he continues to ascend and passes these checkpoints, who knows? Maybe you have your running back of the future. It totally is possible. I definitely think he has that type of talent. I just don't think we've seen it on the bigger scale. He's now earned that opportunity. Maybe he gets the reps. We'll see. And I think it actually would bode well for New Orleans and it would bode well for their quarterback. Pound the rock via the run, build everything off that. Maybe take some play action shots moving forward. That's something the Saints have to get better at, getting more explosive plays in the passing game. Maybe that could be part of it. So we'll see what happens with New Orleans, but I definitely feel like Kendre Miller has earned the right to a bigger workload for week 5, and we'll see if Kellen Moore rewards him with that opportunity. So we'll see what happens. Let me know in the comment section below, guys, though. Do you think the Saints should give Kendre Miller a bigger workload for week 5, week 6, and so on and so forth? And overall, just what are your thoughts on the talented running back from TCU? It's year 3. It seems like this might be the season that he ends up figuring it out. Mind you, he only needs about like 30 more rushing yards to hit his career high in a single season. So things are looking up for Kendre. So comment below. And as always, guys, make sure to subscribe to Boot Crew Media to get more from the Straight Up Saints podcast, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.